Okay, so the book we're going to read today is called The Buffalo Storm, and it is a historical fiction. So that means it's a fiction story, but the things that happen in here could have happened in real life. So it really kind of talks about real people in their life. Let's talk about the setting of this book. So the setting of this book is going to be during the time of the Oregon Trail. So I know that is something you're discussing in Miss T's class. So the cattle boom and the Oregon Trail and the Chisholm Trail and all of those things. So this talks about a girl in her life through that time. So let's think about some of the struggles they would have had. Try to set yourself in that time period as you read this book to help you make connections, but to also help you understand some of the problems that might come up. And it says, although the book is fiction, it shows some of the hardships of those times. So that's kind of what makes it a historical fiction, is it kind of tells us some of the past. Okay, here we go. I was not afraid of anything, except maybe storms. I coaxed a wild-eyed colt to take a saddle and climb the oak by my grandmother's barn, higher than all the boys, cloud catching high. I was not afraid of anything. So when my pa said we're going west to Oregon, I begged to drive the oxen team across the endless prairie. Who's telling this story? Whose point of view is this story being written in? Yes, first person point of view from the perspective of the little girl. What do you think it means coaxed? It says I coaxed a wild-eyed colt to take a saddle. Well, look in here. A colt is a horse. So what do you think she coaxed it? Like she made it happen. I couldn't say the truth of it, not until the night before the wagon rolled, when I helped my grandmother put the barn to bed one last time. My grandmother, who could bake a cake or birth a calf or build a barn. My grandmother, who did not like storms either. I'm not going to Oregon, I told her. You need me here to pick the best berries and name the new kittens and help make a wish on the first firefly of summer. You need me here when the storms come strong and you are afraid, when we are afraid together. What can we infer about how she feels about her grandmother? Yeah, she thinks she's really special. So we may see a question that says, which text evidence supports the idea that the little girl thinks her grandmother is special? In any of these that talk about all her grandmother doing those things. I need you so, my grandmother said, but your mama and papa need you more. With the journey ahead and the new baby coming, from her pocket she pulled out paper and envelopes, a sharp-tipped pen, a jar of night blue ink. Write it all down for me, Haley, she said. All the things I heard tell of. The prairie dogs clawing, the coyotes making crazy music. You'll see buffalo, child, too many to count. What a gift to hear the earth rumble as they run. I ran my fingers over paper, cool and smooth. Haley says she's not afraid. Can you infer that she might be just a little bit afraid? A little bit, like she doesn't want to go. So she was like, oh, but you need me here to do this, and you need me here to do this, because maybe she got to thinking more and more about it. At dawn, the wagon waited, oiled canvas top, gleaming like bread loaf ready for the oven. Papa fussed and said 40 head of oxen couldn't budge this wagon. Too much is coming. Too much, I thought, is getting left behind. Into my arms my grandmother placed the quilt she stitched while I was still a girl. When a storm starts, she said, wrap this around you and think of me. She hugged me close and her coat smelled sharp and sweet, of hay and horse and pine. She whispered the words so I would know how much they mattered. I am old and this is my home. But I'll be with you just the same. What can we conclude or what can we infer about that quilt? What can you say about it? Maybe it was a really family, like a really special thing. Why do you think she gives it to her? Because she's scared and she wants her to feel safe in the travels of the trail. We joined other wagons like beads slowly stringing, and Papa let me drive the team. though some said I was too young and green, and a girl to boot. At night we circled, fire spat and crackled, children danced, baby drowsed. Men boasted of the buffalo they would shoot just to watch their great bodies fall. Mama handed me the pen and the crisp waiting paper. Which way is home? I asked. She pointed to my heart. There, inside, she said, there is home. But I knew inside was just a hard place hurting. I put the pen away. They use lots of similes in this book, if you've noticed so far. They compare lots of things from one thing to the other. Have you noticed any as I've been reading? I was trying to look here. I guess I put that note on the wrong page. I'm sorry. The first storm came deep in the Nebraska night, spun out of too much quiet. Hail hurled down. Rain bounced off the stubborn earth. I hid under my grandmother's quilt, shaking fingers tracing the careful stitches. Back home, she'd sing while the thunder rolled, but now her voice was lost to me as furious lightning split the sky and the animals bellowed in fear. I could not even hear myself cry. So this whole page is describing the storm that they're going through, and that descriptive language and all of that figurative language they use and that personification where they took something that was not a human and gave it human characteristics. It said the furious lightning split the sky. Well, lightning doesn't split the sky, but that's what it looks like it's doing. And the animals bellowed in fear, like they yelled. The next morning, a creek was waiting to be crossed, swollen with rain and looking for trouble. Mud sucked at the wheels while the oxen groaned. We hit a rock and the wagon lurched, pitching me into the icy water. The current tried to swallow me whole, but I hung tight to a wheel till Papa hauled me in like a fish. You're a tough one, he said, when you want to be. As long as there's no thunder around. Mama held me. We're all of us afraid of something, she said. And the simile they used here was, Papa hauled me in like a fish. So like just pulling you in. Imagine someone just pulling a fish in a boat. What that might look like. Weeks wove together and faded in the sun. By the time we reached Wyoming, the oxen hooves were bleeding and my toes showed through my shoes. One day during the nooning, I searched for buffalo chips to feed the fire. I rounded a sandstone ridge, and when I looked back, the wagons had vanished in the dusty air. I'm not afraid, I told a skittering lizard. I couldn't say the truth of it, not with the clouds so low and fierce. A cry cut the stillness, and I spun around, searching out the sound. Could you imagine being in her shoes? Can any of you connect to her? Have you ever been lost from your parents in that moment and scared and didn't know what to do? Past the ridge, I saw a little buffalo calf, red gold bawling, leg wedged in a rocky place. Her mother stomped and snorted and riled at this as the black sky, tail whirling like a lariat. The calf cried again, and I knew what I had to do. I was not afraid of anything, except maybe those angry clouds. She'd be no more trouble than a wild-eyed colt, the one I'd tamed with my grandmother's help. It says, which context clues let us know what the word wedged means? It says, a little buffalo calf, red gold bawling, leg wedged in a rocky place. So the word wedge lets us know like it's stuck and it's in a rocky place. I shined down sharp rocks. The calf blinked at me with eyes like wet marbles. I neared her slowly, soothing. Whoa, girl, whoa. Her breath wild and warm on my face. I pushed and yanked and grunted. She kicked and complained and fretted. And then, with one last great heave, she was free. I watched her run, clumsy and stiff-legged, to her mother's nuzzled scolding. What lets us know What piece of text evidence proves to us that she had courage to rescue that calf? Yeah, it says she walked up to her and said, "Whoa, girl, whoa." And she was soothing her. Suddenly, a noise like boulders breaking shook the air, and I knew a storm was coming. Bigger and louder than I'd known. A storm like no other. Dust billowed, a thick brown fog. I dropped to the dirt and covered my ears, waiting for lightning to tear the sky, trembling so hard that the earth itself began to tremble too. And then I remembered my grandmother's words. What a gift to hear the earth rumble as they run. And I knew. What is the mood of the story right now? If you had to guess the mood, like when we're reading this story, how are you feeling? What are some of the feelings you're getting from this story? I would say the mood's a little suspenseful, maybe she's a little anxious or scared. And what does she mean when she said, "And I knew"? What do you think that she means by that? Let's find out. Across the land, the buffalo thundered, huge and surely and crazed with life. I stood. I stared. I yelped with joy at the sight of it. On and on, for miles and miles, they moved like a black ocean, surging, an ocean without end. Do you see that simile right there? How they compared the buffalo running to the ocean. "Fine storm," I shouted and laughed, just the way I knew my grandmother would have laughed. What a gift, I thought, feeling my grandmother there with me at last. When finally they were gone, the calf and her mother loping behind, the air went silent as a prayer. Dark clouds knotted the sky, and blowing sand stung my cheeks, but I kept walking. When thunder rumbled, I didn't flinch or hide or cry. It seemed harmless as a puppy's growl, a tiny echo of something much grander. At last, the wagons came into view, and then the rain began. By the time we made Oregon, my wool dress was worn and patched as my grandmother's quilt. The air tasted of autumn, but the soil was deep and rich and waiting. Hope grows bigger here, Papa said, big like the trees. I helped to make a simple cabin to see the family through the winter. A palace, Mama said. I wrote my letter the day my sister was born. "Dear grandmother," it read. "We named the baby Olympia. My idea, after you. When storms come, I will wrap her in your quilt and hold her close just the way you used to hold me. Oregon's a fine place with trees just right for climbing. It's home now for me, this new wild place. But I promise I'll be with you just the same." All right, so let's talk about a couple things really fast. What do you think the author's message was in this story? What do you think the author wanted us to learn, or what lesson could we learn from Haley and the characters in the story and the things that they went through? I think we can learn that you can overcome your fears, just like Haley did. She was scared to move. She was scared of storms. And in certain moments, she overcame her fears. It says you can keep people who are dear to you close in your heart, even when they are not physically with you. And I think that's something important for us to remember. Like, even though Haley didn't have her grandmother, she had something of her dear to her heart, her words, her quilt, whatever it might be, her memories. And it kind of gave her strength through some hard times. You notice how the text is kind of organized in a sequence story. First they were moving, and then the process of them moving, and then in the end of them getting to there. What can we infer about Haley and her relationship with her grandmother? Yeah, I think we can infer they had a really special relationship for sure. And I want you to think about, how can you connect to this story? Think about maybe someone you have in your life that's like Haley. And if you were to read this book, could you put yourself in that person in this story and overcome your fears by keeping them close to you?